Hey YouTube, back on again. Once again, I have no specific axe to grind. Hey Justin Shepard, welcome to the stream, man. You want to sound check for me? Let me know if the sound is coming through all right. I seem to have gotten the settings down to where it's not causing an issue anymore. Thanks. What's going on with Justin Shepard today? If you have questions, I'd be more than happy to have that to talk about. It may be something that I'm not really great at, but I'll be more than willing. Hey, Charles, long time no see, man. How's Charles doing? Charles, I've been off and on following your latest around the world tours you've been doing. Hey, Race Fish Room, welcome to the stream. You have gotten some very interesting fish, Charles. How is it going for your fish lately? I have caught your streams. Hey Laura, welcome to the stream. Charles says, been good, just been busy putting a hold on expansion of my hobby. Yeah, I understand it. Justin asks, would mosquito fish and guppies make viable offspring? I saw you ask that question in Lucas's chat, Justin, and Lucas gave you the idea that they probably would. Guppies seem highly variable in what they can and can't crossbreed with. Mosquito fish are close to guppies in the sense that they're kind of like endlers are. So I'm going to go with what Lucas said, Justin, and I think that they definitely breed with endlers. That's where we've gotten a lot of the endlers that we have now. I've got some of Lucas's tiger rainbow endlers, and that's what those are. They're a hybrid cross between guppies of certain genetics and endlers of certain genetics, and they've gone together to produce those. So I know definitely that they'll cross with endlers, and I'm going to guess that they would cross with mosquito fish too. Charles asks, how are those cichlids you got from Peru doing? They're really nice looking. Did you ID the species? And Charles, I have been working night and day. I think that they probably would, Justin. They would probably cross with mosquito fish too. But the only way to tell is to try it, to see if you can get crosses. Put only female guppies in, and that have not been I don't know, Charles. I mean, you may well be right, but I think that they're close enough where they might. And I think the only way to find out would be to take young females and put them with males of mosquito fish. Young female guppies in the sense that they've never been bred with, that they were too young to breed, and put them with mosquito fish and see what happens. That would be my answer on the subject. Um, Charles is asking about my Bur Buherkina Buherkaina that I got from the Peru trip. Um, they're doing fine. I've got them in a 30-gallon with seven. I think they're CW 109 cories, and I can barely feed the cories because the two cichlids try to eat everything that goes in the tank and to keep those poor cories from getting anything. I'm having to balance between overfeeding so that I know the cories are getting something and trying to keep the water quality up. So it's been an issue, and they are doing well. These fish are the sexuality differences are so small that I cannot decide whether I've actually got a potential pair. If you watch breeding videos on Buherkaina, you will not be able to really tell a difference between the male and the female. And what's the sexually isomorphic? Is that the proper terminology for fish that there are really no differences between the males and the females until the breeding tubes drop, and that's the only way you really know. I have been watching every video I can find on Buherkaina on YouTube, on the web. Tembo Pate, which are named after the river. And to your point, you guys know how big I am on books, how I try to tell you guys, hey 54 Punchy, welcome to the stream, man. You guys know how I often tell you how important I think it is to have a good, solid library, and that this is one of those instances where I fall back on my good, solid library. And the book in question here, I'm hoping that will come out clearly, is The Most Complete Colored Lexicon of Cichlids, Every Known Cichlid Illustrated in Color. And this is by Dr. Herbert Axelrod. And this book came out, what was it, 92? And I actually have a signed copy. This book was outrageously expensive when I bought it. For the money I was making and how much this book cost. But this is a book that I strongly recommend. I'm looking for the publishing date. 93 is when it came out. Okay. In this book is a section. Let's see how this looks. See if here, let's since I'm going to be doing this book, let's go full screen. You guys can see my messy house. And I will show you the section on the genus Buherkaina, and it is a small but as thorough as possible. The genus Buherkaina. Sven O. Kolander, the Swedish genius ichthyologist, who has described more new species of cichlids in a shorter time period than anyone in the history of Ichthyology designated this name, Buherkaina, to contain about 12 new species he described, plus another 4 species already known. The genus is represented throughout the Amazonia and Paraguayan ranges and is not geographically significant. His first words are moderate size to 110 millimeters, about 5 inches, South American cichlids with American type lips. Yeah, that's probably a good pronunciation, Charles. Buherkaina. But if you look in, once again, the books, if you look in this book, Dr. Wayne Liebel, this is South American Cichlids, A Fish Keeper's Guide to South American Cichlids. Dr. Wayne Liebel says very clearly, Buherkaina. So it depends on how the Peruvians pronounce it or how the Brazilians pronounce it. So Buherkaina is good, but Liebel says very clearly Buherkaina. K and then E-Y-E-N-A. So Buherkaina. All right. South American cichlids with American type lips. So American cichlid type lips. And American cichlids. Hey Kevin, welcome to the stream. Hey Daryl, welcome to the stream. The name Buherkaina is from the Peruvian vernacular buherque, which Callender described to be feminine, probably because of the American lips. The word Buherkaina is acara in Brazil, so that's the word that they use to describe an acara in Brazil. And that makes sense because these are not true acara, but they are in the area of acaras, and they are called mouth-brooding acaras. In general, Callender represents the ultimate in those ichthyologists we call splitters. And here, good old Axelrod goes into one of his rants. He looks for differences between fishes rather than similarities. I seriously disagree with most of the determinations in this genus, but this book is not the arena in which to challenge his determinations. Obviously, he's throwing up a red flag here and saying, I don't believe in this splitting. Axelrod was always a lumper, not a splitter. He believed in lumping fishes together by their similarities, which there's a great deal of support for both sides. But I think in this instance, I follow the splitting side. I follow Sven Callender's ichthyology of splitting because of the very major differences between these fish and what are commonly known as acara, because they are highly differentiated from acara. So, I have followed his nomenclature because it is proper and courteous to do so. But I do it under protest. So even in this lexicon, Axelrod is making a case that he doesn't believe that these are Buherkaina. He believes that they are aquadins, acaras. The description can be found in his book, Cichlid Fishes of the Amazon River Drainage of Peru, Swedish Museum of Natural History, 1986. And so that's the book, and that's the collection trip that Buherkaina came away from, that where he collected so many of these fish or someone collected so many of these different variants of this fish that he used that to set up a new clade which he named Buherkaina. The first one is Buherkaina a paparuna. This fish was described by Sven O. Kolander in 1986 based on a holotype of 3 inches without the tail from the Rio Ucayali, Peru. Kolander references Aquadinus spilaris, under which misidentification the fish has been around for some time. And here we get a picture. Yeah, the lumpers, if the lumpers had their way. Here, let's see if I can hold this book up well enough to give you the picture. This is not going to be very effective, but you can see how these fish look. You know, you're getting a rough approximation here. But the first one down on the bottom left of your screen is the first fish in the group, Buherkaina apaparuna. The second one is Buherkaina cordimati. This species was described by Sven O. Kolander in '86 based upon a holotype 61.8 millimeters, about 2.4 inches in length without the tail. It was found in the Rio Madre de Dios. So this fish was actually caught out of the main river in the area, Rio de Dios. Rio Madre de Dios, the Mother of God River, is my understanding of it. The name Cordimata stands for the acronym of a Peruvian company. The third, Buherkaina urhinus. This fish was described from a female holotype about 3 inches long without the tail. It was found in the Rio Madre de Dios, Peru. Because of the more recognizable differences between male and female fish in the same species, it might have been advisable to stick to using males in all of his Buherkaina new species, even though there is no great sexual dimorphism in these fishes. The name urhinus means big snout in Greek. Think of rhinoceros, referring to the outstanding snout caused by the large lips in mature specimens. The snout is only outstanding when compared to other Buherkaina, not when comparing to many other fishes. The snout actually grows fleshier in males as they get older. So that may be one of the ways to differentiate between males and females in the species, that the snout of the males gets fleshier, larger. The shape of their head will change as the males get older. And all of this stuff is just little bits and partlets of information that we as hobbyists have to use to put together a way of identifying the differences, the sexual differences. Charles, I had 7 of them in the, Charles is asking how many I brought back. I had 7 of them at camp, at the base camp of Go Wild Peru. 2 of them jumped from the tank. I lost 2 of them from the tank, and 5 were shipped, and these were the only 2 to survive the shipping. They were in a bag with 3 dead bag mates. So these 2 are the only survivors from the 7 that were caught. And I did not catch any of these. Um, I will tell you, and I don't want to be very specific, that these came from the Araza, and this is the day that Washington was recruited to go with us. Corey, Felix, and myself went one direction down a very small creek off of the river that was not connected directly to the river where we were at. I'm sure it came from the river and emptied back into the river at some place. But we went one direction. Dean, Joseph, and Washington went north along the river itself, and they were the ones that caught these. They caught them with wolffish. They caught them with a few of the cories that Dean wanted so badly. We were trying to catch the cories, and right now the name of those cories escapes my brain, but Kevin says, well, I had a genius idea, Daryl. I took floating pond plants from my koi pond with long-hanging roots to give them some natural spawning mop stuff. The next morning, all my rainbows were upside down in the roots of the plants. Does that mean that you lost those rainbows, Kevin? That they died under those plants? Or that something you brought in from the koi pond killed your rainbows that quickly? That sounds like a rough happening, Kevin. Sorry to hear that if I'm reading you correctly. Oh, I killed my 55-gallon this week. Lost all my Goiter River rainbows and a bunch of others in the tank. I'm really sorry to hear that, man. Okay. Buher Kaina Hofris. This fish was described by Sven O. Callender in '86 based upon a holotype, a female of 68.5 millimeters, which is about 3 inches in total length, from the Rio Pahita. It is very similar to Buher Kaina Apaparurana, the first one. So it's very similar. And if that can be seen, gosh, my shoulder's really bad and this is killing it. My thumb is on the picture of these guys, and he's saying that these are very, very similar to the first fish itself. And you're looking at different markings on these fish. You know, every time we change a parameter, every time we change a light, every time we change a substrate, every time we add, hey, down the wormhole, welcome to the stream. Every time we change something in the tank, add more fish, take fish away, our fish are going to exhibit different colorations. They have hundreds of different potential colorations. Yeah, Kevin, because for all those fish to die instantly, either something really bad got in the tank, like chemical or something, or somehow all the oxygen was pulled out of the tank. I'm not sure exactly what, but that's not good, man. I'm sorry for your loss on all those rainbows. So, Buharkana hula gei. This fish was described by Sven O. Callender in '86 based upon a holotype from near Tingo Maria, Peru. It is known in the aquarium trade as Aquadinus vitata. The type was an adult male of 3 inches without the tail. He named the fish Huelagea since it was the name of the river into which the waters drain from the pond where this fish was discovered. So this fish was discovered in a pond. And to be honest with you, this Huo Agaya, oh God, lift this heavy book again. That fish looks about as close to my fish as any I've seen so far in the book. But once again, there's just no telling which coloration these fish are in the process of showing and which coloration the fish in my tanks are showing. I listed in one of my videos what I thought they looked the most like. I have since, and that was one that is found in the Caliente River in Bolivia, and that was the only known location for it. They didn't have it anywhere else, and the water was in the 80s. Caliente meaning hot, and those fish I have watched extensive videos of online. And once again, when you're watching a YouTube video, you never know whether those people have appropriately named the fish that they have, identified the fish they have. I mean, it's very possible that they have. It's very possible that they collected the fish themselves. It's very possible that the shipper has correctly identified them. It's very possible that the store has correctly identified them. But you don't know. You really can't tell from just some YouTuber putting unless it's somebody that's a well-known person in the hobby, who's obviously someone that studies intensely, who's done tons of a collection, who's had plenty of time with natives in the area of the fish they're collecting. You don't know whether the fish are correctly identified in the video or not. And those fish, about half the time, show a much more yellow coloration than my fish do overall. But I don't know that the temperature in my tank, which is in the low 70s, 72, 73, if I put that tank temperature up to 80 degrees, I don't know that they wouldn't begin to show more yellow coloration. So I really can't positively identify them, but I do think that I'm getting closer and closer to identification. I'm obviously going to have to send a very clear set of pictures to Sven Kullander to get a definitive, as I've said before, Michael Barber sent a picture of the fish, a pretty clear picture of the fish, to Hans George Evers, and he said that it was an undescribed Acara, and I have no true way of denying that potential possibility, except for the fact that all these Buherkaina look so much like my fish. None of them look exactly like my fish, and none of the things that I've been able to spot so far say without question that they are or aren't my fish, because it's such a variable thing. The difference in your fish, in the colors that they are displaying for you in your setup, it may be colder, it may be warmer, it may have a higher TDS, it may have a lower TDS, it may have a higher nitrate, it may have a lower nitrate. All of these things play into how our fish display in our tanks, and only when you hit the perfect water parameters and the perfect tank mates, do you begin to see what their normal coloration looks like? And I don't know that what I'm getting is their normal coloration. My TDS is much higher, and I say that reflectively because because the TDS that we read on these guys was 27. When we took them back to base camp, the TDS on the well water that Go Wild Peru uses for their tanks was 45. And the last time I took a TDS reading in that tank, it was right around 50. So I know that the TDS is within their range of being livable, that they can survive in that TDS, but I still can't say that it is exactly the TDS that they were caught in, so you never really know what the exact coloration of one of these fish is going to be. They may be in a dominant situation where they are low on the pecking order, and you will get a darker, more likely to hide fish coloration. If they are the dominant male in the pecking order, they will be light and brightly colored and show all their colorations off because they're displaying for all the fish that are lower in the pecking order and all the females that may be in the tank. You just never know exactly what the coloration of the fish that you're looking at is regarding their normal coloration and perhaps the coloration of a picture that has been taken by someone online, in a book. You just really don't know. You can tell a lot of things. You can see the colorations of the paired fins. You can see the colorations of their dorsal fin, of their tail. You can see spots where spots are normally on the fish. But that doesn't mean that those spots aren't part of a larger line that shows up when they're in the proper coloration. So it's very difficult to decide exactly what fish you have when you're in a situation like this where maybe no one knows. Maybe it is an undescribed fish. Maybe it is a fish that is closely related to all of the others but is undescribed in the sense that you can't find the exact ID because an ichthyologist hasn't exactly ID'd it yet. So there's a lot of black and white in this hobby. There's a lot of times when there is no doubt in your mind as to what something is. And your skill level with experiencing fish from the same area, with having gone through lots of shipments of lots of fish over the years, will increase your ability to say what it isn't. I know it isn't this. Hey, KG Cichlids, welcome to the stream, man. So back to the book. Buherkaina labiosa. This fish was originally described by Sven Kullander in '86, based upon a holotype of 54.4 millimeters, or about 2 inches, without the tail. Essentially, the description is based upon a single female, as the paratype of about 1 inch was poorly preserved. It is difficult to base conclusions on a single specimen, especially one which looks so much like other fishes in the same genus and from the same area. The elongated snout compared to the other Buherkaina, the large spot on the middle of the body, and the spot on the caudal pentacle may be diagnostic. The type came from the Rio Ucali. I found the same fish in Kamchatka Tagu, Venezuela in 1971. So in this instance, Axelrod is arguing with Sven Kullander's placement of this species as being so similar to the others. How could he possibly make a differentiation between them? But obviously Sven did. And this fish looks a lot like my fish, only it has no coloration in it like my fish do that I can see. But then once again, we don't know whether this is a fish that's stressed and then thereby not showing the coloration. There's no coloration on the dorsal fin. There's no spangles on the mouth area. And most Acara have stripes or spots on their uppercle. I think that's the way you pronounce that word. So in this book, you're getting Axelrod arguing with Sven Kullander about what he thinks is not a proper clade member for this clade that Kullander set up. Buherkaina Maria. This fish was originally described by Eigenmann in 1922. Memoirs of the Carnegie Museum, page 241. His type came from Beringam, which is a small town on the Rio Meta, east of Bogota, where many aquarium fishes were collected on a normal basis. The type was a 6-inch fish. This fish has rarely come into the hobby, probably because it has been misidentified. I went to the original description of Eigenmann and used that as the basis for the identification of the photographs shown here. And it is a much more colorful fish than mine are. It has many more striped. The way the scales along the side of the body run are much more striped in appearance. It's got a lot more darker coloration and more blue than mine does. Buherkaina megalospilus. This fish was originally described by Kullander in '86 based upon a holotype of 70.7 millimeters, or about 3 inches with tail. This holotype was a female discovered in a fish pond on the Rio Nechua. Perhaps this Peruvian beauty is a cultivated species. Kullander suggests that the unique color lacked of a distinct nape band, and nape band would be across the head, which my fish have very clearly, a nape band. But this fish looks very much like my fish. Lack of a distinct nape band, a prominent mid-lateral spot, and the absence of an interorbital band are diagnostic. And by diagnostic, he's saying how it is that you can decide whether a fish is one thing or the other. And here are more pictures. Ugh. And I'm doing this because Charles has asked me about how I have gone about trying to identify these fish. And this is one of the ways that I've done it, by extensively searching the documentation that I have that includes them. Hey Danks, welcome to the stream. We're listening to me rant on about trying to identify my fish, and in the process I'm reading from the most complete colored lexicon of cichlids by Axelrod, and we're dealing with Axelrod's lumperism when it comes to ichthyology. He believes in lumping all fishes together by similarity, whereas Kullander is a splitter who breaks things up based on differences. And Axelrod, even in this book in '93, Axelrod is railing against Kullander, creating this clade and splitting these fish into different subspecies by the methodology that he used. He's arguing against some of them. He's arguing that some of these have long been described and are already in the trade, already in the hobby, and have been kept by a lot of people. And this is what goes on at the upper levels. Hey, Oddball Aquatics, welcome to the stream, man. This is what goes on in the upper levels of our hobby. The people that are actual movers and shakers, that are the ones out there collecting species, that are the ones that are ichthyologists, that are describing species, the people that are shippers and transshippers. All of these people play together against each other in many ways, disagreeing, agreeing on certain topics. Oddball says he just got a new phone and he's lost at the moment. I know that feeling well. Okay, there's just one more section here, and two more species, and I'm going to read them. Buherkaina morirum. This species was originally described by Kullander in '86 based upon a holotype of 85.2 millimeters in length without the tail, 3.4 inches. This type came from the Peruvian Rio Ucayali drainage, the Loreto area. The type, a female, was not the largest specimen collected. The largest was almost 4 inches without the tail. The name Moriarum derives from Luis Morii Pinedo and Palmira Padilla de Mori to show the author's appreciation. This is a well-known fish since it has been collected in the Leticia, Colombia area for 40 years. Leticia is a famous fish shipping point. And this one has a much different coloration, a much different display of a black lateral line. The coloration on the paired and unpaired fins is sort of close, sort of similar, but not really. The last one, the second to the last one, is Buherkaina ortega. This fish was described by Kullander in '86 based upon 5 specimens collected by Sir H. Ortega. The type, an adult male about 5 inches in total length, was found in the Rio Mayo near Moyobamba and Rioya, Peru. Dr. Herman Ortega Torres is a well-known ichthyologist at the Museum de Historia Natural Javier Prado, Lima, Peru. So the museum there. This fish seems to be identical to Buherkaina hulage, both visually and in meristic characteristics. It can only be separated from the hulage by the immaculate spinous dorsal fin. See Buherkaina hulage for the illustration as the fish look identical. And the last one described is Buherkaina peregrinabunda. This fish was originally described by Kullander in '86 based on a holotype found in the Rio Tayacu, Loreto, Peru. The type was a female about 3 inches in length without the tail. Kullander records 10 specimens in total. The scientific name is a well-known derivative. Think of the peregrine falcon. Peregrinabunda means, according to the author, one that travels abroad. Since this fish is found throughout the northern Amazon, including Peru, Brazil, Colombia, and even in the Rio Paraguay system, the name is proper. The fish is well known to aquarists under the name Aquadinus vittata. It has been known since Haeckel originally described it in 1840. So you get a feeling from this about just how reluctant Axelrod is to go along with with the clade that Kullander has erected for what he perceives as the difference in these fish. He's arguing at every turn against them being separate species and a separate clade. But that just shows you how difficult it is to put a proper identification on this fish. And Charles is asking me, what other fish did you bring back from Peru? Charles, I should have had about 130 fish in my tanks, and I ended up with about 25 fish in my tanks. So a great many of the fish that I brought back that were shipped to me from Peru died along the way, and I did not receive them. There were several Astanex, and I think I'm pronouncing that name correctly. They're like bucktooth tetras. They are very they will kill any other fish. They've got a heavy set of teeth, and they will kill other fish. In the holding tanks at Go Wild Peru, they chopped up several of the hatchet fish that I brought back, the marbled hatchet fish, and I had probably 4 or 5 marble hatchet fish. I had probably I had one silver dollar, which I couldn't identify because I didn't have anything to work with down there as to what exact silver dollar it was. I had probably 30 or 40 blues, the titty raycocks, or I can't, the pronunciation is not clear in my head right now. But if you went to the Go Wild Peru site, you would see them, or if you looked at the videos, I've put the name of them in those videos. We don't need to be looking at my ugly mug full screen. I can give you guys pictures from Peru again. I did end up with, what I ended up with being shipped from Dean was the CW109 Cories. I got 7. I got 2 of my cichlids in alive. I got about a dozen Nigricinctus, the black belt tetras, and I got 3 tetras which I have not identified yet that are bluish like the blues, but they have a lateral stripe that runs through them, and I identified them earlier as the spot tetras, which is just the name that Michael Barber and Felix were using to describe them. But the more I've looked at them, the more I realize that the black spot is very light in them, not like the ones they call the black spots. So I'm not sure exactly what they were. Charles asks, that sucks. What happened to cause such a high loss? Charles, what happened was, for whatever reason, our fish sat in Lima, Peru for almost 3 days, for the better part of 3 days before they were shipped. We lost most of our gold greens, plecos, and sisters, the fish that I was most excited about having, to the fact that the boxes were double stacked and that the weight of the bags on top pushed down on the bags below and either squashed the air out of the bags or just forced them down right into the water almost. And the bags were well packed. Don't get me wrong here. I'm not dissing the packing at all. It's just the fact that they sat so long, much longer than they should have, and that the green golds were on the bottom of the box with bags stacked on top of them. There was a separation between them, but they just sat for so long that the weight of those bags on top pushed down on the ones below. And of course, if you've got 7 or 8 fish in a bag, once one of them dies and the others have to sit in that water for any period of time, 4 or 5 hours will be enough to kill them all, just because of how much ammonia is created by the decay of the dead fish. All of the blues just about died. I think Dean said he ended up with 7 out of close to 200, and they were in really bad shape. They had obviously been dead for a very long time. And this was the shipper's fault. This was nothing to do with Go Wild Peru. This is not an indictment of Go Wild Peru in any way, shape, or form. Dean moved heaven and earth to try to get those fish shipped, and they just, Umberto at Lima, Peru, in charge of shipping, just pretty much killed our fish, is what he did. Now, he gave many reasons why the fish were not shipped. I don't know that those are lies. I don't know that they are the truth. I'm not going to go into those reasons because it's kind of pointless. It's just that the end result was that our fish sat on a concrete floor in a warehouse in Lima, Peru for almost 3 days, and then were shipped. And the truth is that that's what killed our fish. And yes, all the fish got shipped to Dean and Corey. So they got the original boxes, and then Dean kept them for 2 weeks and picked through what was going to survive and what wasn't going to survive and shipped me my fish. I got 1 gold green and citrus pleco, the ones that we wanted so much, and we should have gotten about 12 to 15 each. Dean, Joseph, and myself, we should have all gotten about 12 or 15. In the end, I think there was only 4 that survived, and Dean shipped me 1 of them, and the fish was so badly damaged, it had such hemorrhaging around its gills area, the areas where fish show hemorrhaging when their gills are compromised by huge amounts of ammonia. They're literally burnt. That fish didn't survive for 3 days in my tank. It never did anything but just try to breathe continuously. Yeah, it is sad. And people don't for a second think that I am trying to diss Dean or Corey or Michael Barber or Ian Fuller or Felix at Go Wild Peru. They all did their jobs. They did the best they could do. Okay, Charles is asking, that's really disconcerting. How is Go Wild Peru going to prevent this from happening again? Sounds like this is the first time such a delay has happened with this company. My understanding, and I don't have this directly from Michael Barber, but my understanding, we decided from the beginning to let Dean be our point man in discussions on this issue. Corey and Joseph and I decided to let Dean handle it. Since Dean handled all the shipping, all of the required paperwork for the shipping, since he handled basically everything, including shipping to us, we all agreed to let Dean handle this, and I've been very happy with Dean's handling of this. But he says that he thinks that Michael has found a new shipper. You know, All across Peru, all of the fish that get shipped out go through Lima, Peru, because Lima is the big airport where the big planes come. So if you collect fish in the Iquitos area, those fish will get shipped to Lima and then out of Lima to the United States or wherever you're at. So all of those fish are being funneled through Lima. But all of those fish aren't funneled through the same shipping company that Umberto worked for, Mr. Umberto. And so my understanding is that Michael Barber has changed shippers and that he will not be using that shipping company anymore. And to me, that's a good thing. Perhaps no one else will have this same problem before. And there was a group that came after our group. You know, we were there for 8, 9 days, 10 days, and then there was a group the following week that came after us that was there for 10 days or 14 days. I'm not sure which they took. So both of our shipments were the ones that were delayed for all that time. And I'm sure they had just as terrible a losses as we did. Dean said that it ended up being in the 20 to 25% survival rate area, but it should have been in the 90 to 95% survival rate. You know, you lose a fish in a bag, a fish gets shipped that's sick or has something wrong with it, or the collecting hurt it badly, and it gets put in a bag with a bunch of other fish, and it dies, you're going to lose some fish. There's just no way around the potential of losing fish during shipping. You may lose every fish shipped. It's possible. But it's usually, as long as the shipping doesn't stretch out too long, as long as the fish don't have to sit somewhere for way longer than they should, it is in the realm of probability that you're going to get between a 70 and a 90% survival rate, whereas we ended up with like a 20 to 25% survival rate. And I think most of those, for some reason, were Corys. I think the Corys out-survived everything else. So I ended up with 3 plecos, 3 ancestral plecos, which Michael had dubbed gold flake plecos because they have golden spots on them. And one of them that I've got is very lightly colored. It may be a different species. It's very lightly colored, and it shows a much more golden body coloration than the other 2 do. And the other 2 both have white on the tips of their fins and their dorsal fin. The tail fin and the dorsal fin both have little patches of white on them. And so I'm still in the process of trying to identify those fish. They may have been described. They may be in the species, in the hobby, but I have yet to see them in the hobby. So I'm looking for those too. And Charles says, that's good to hear. I eventually want to go on a trip with Go Wild Peru, so that's a relief. Charles, I could not more highly recommend an experience to you than going on this trip. It is remarkable. It is life adjusting. It is hobby changing in the sense that you begin to gain a whole new perspective on what is meant by habitat, what it actually looks like when you're there, what's actually in the water, what the water movement and quality and experience actually is. It just stunned me. It really did. My whole paradigm of what I thought proper aquascaping for a habitat was just got spun around on its head. So do not hesitate for a moment to take a Go Wild Peru trip. I think Corey and Dean and Joseph are going again next year. I can't afford to do that again. It took so much saving for me to be able to go on a trip like this. It just not within my realm of possibility to do it again, and that's much to my regret. Because if I was to go again, I'd want to spend 3 days collecting uh, green gold and citrus. Those fish were so remarkable. Their coloration was just unbelievable. All right, guys, we've passed the hour. You guys have once again fed me enough questions to get me through another hour of ranting and raving. Um, I hope that a little bit of this has been useful to you. I know it's pretty specific to what I'm going through right now, but once again, I hope that I've provided you some potential use in my ramblings here. If nothing else in this episode, I have really tried to explain to you why I believe having a solid fish keeping library is so handy. Yes, this book, The Complete Lexicon of Cichlids, is what almost 30 years old now, but it is still relevant in this day and age, and it has pictures of these fish in it that I've not been able to find anywhere else, period. So stuff like this, it sits on your shelf and it gathers dust, and you may not look at it for 10 years straight. And then something comes up and a little light bulb goes on in your head, and you remember that you read something about these fish in a book that you have, and you go and pull it off the shelf, and lo and behold, there's exactly the information that you need to help you understand that fish. Justin, you have a great day too. Everybody, I wish you luck with your fish. Kevin, I'm sorry to hear about you losing so many. Everybody have a great rest of your weekend.